You know, if you've used Netflix or Shopify or even scrolled through Facebook today, you've already used a technology that's totally changing how our apps get their data. That tech is called GraphQL, and believe me, it's the engine making some of the world's biggest apps feel so incredibly fast.
Right? You tap a button, and boom, exactly what you wanted just appears, instantly. There's no lag, no waiting for a bunch of extra junk you didn't ask for to load. A huge part of that magic comes down to how the app on your phone talks to the server. And that whole conversation, well, it's getting a major upgrade.
Okay, think about it like you're ordering food at a restaurant. The old way, what we call a REST API, is like a fixed menu. You order the steak dinner, you get the steak, you get the potatoes, you get the beans, even if you hate beans. GraphQL, on the other hand, is like ordering a la carte. You can just say, hey, I just want the steak, medium rare, and that is exactly what shows up on your plate. Nothing more.
So that begs the question, why did anyone need to invent GraphQL in the first place? Well, to really get why it's such a big deal, we have to look at the problems it was built to solve. We got to talk about the hidden headaches of that traditional fixed menu approach.
The biggest problem with the old way, really, is just how inefficient it is. It's a system that just wasn't designed for the kind of complex, fast-moving apps we use on our phones and on the web today. You're always in one of two situations. Either you're getting a fire hose of data you don't need, or you're not getting enough.
So here's the classic problem, overfetching. Imagine your app only needs to show a user's name on the screen. Simple enough, right? But you make that one call to the server and it sends back this huge block of data with 30 different fields. The user's name, their age, their address, their favorite color, their dog's name, everything. All that extra data is just a massive waste. And then you've got the opposite problem, which is just as frustrating, underfetching. Let's say your app needs to show a user's profile, their most recent posts, and their list of friends. With a traditional REST API, that could mean making 3 separate round trips to the server. First you ask for the user, then you wait, then you ask for the posts, wait again, then you ask for the friends. Each one of those trips adds delay, slowing the whole experience down to a crawl.
And look, this isn't just some abstract technical issue. This stuff has real-world consequences. All that wasted data from overfetching eats up your mobile data plan and drains your phone's battery. All those round trips from underfetching make the app feel sluggish and unresponsive. And for the developers, having to constantly go back to the server team and say, hey, can you build me a new endpoint just for this one screen? It just grinds development to a halt.
So you've got these two big problems, getting way too much data or having to make a bunch of different trips to get the data you actually need. This is the exact moment where GraphQL just comes in and completely flips the script. It puts all the power, all the control back where it belongs, in the hands of the app itself, what we developers call the client.
At its very core, GraphQL is exactly what its name says, a query language for your API. It gives the app, the client, a super simple but really powerful way to describe the precise data it's looking for. And just that one idea completely wipes out both overfetching and underfetching. The client is finally in charge of the conversation.
And this is where it gets really, really cool. Instead of having to manage and document hundreds of different URLs for every little piece of data, your entire application can talk to the server through a single, super smart endpoint. Seriously, it's like having one genius concierge who can get you anything you ask for, instead of having to know which of 100 different doors to knock on.
All right, I know what you're thinking. A single endpoint that can do everything? That sounds a little bit like magic, but I promise you it's not. Let's pull back the curtain and break down the 3 core pieces that make this whole thing work so beautifully.
It really just boils down to a simple 3-step dance. First, on the server, you define a schema. This is like the master menu of every single piece of data anyone could ever possibly ask for. Step 2, the client sends a query, which is its specific custom order from that menu. And finally, step 3, the server uses things called resolvers. You can think of them as the chefs in the kitchen, to go and fetch each item from your order and assemble the perfect plate of data.
And the best part? The result is just perfect. The shape of the data you get back from the server perfectly matches the shape of the query you sent. It's incredible. Your query literally looks like a little sketch of the data you want. You ask for the user, and inside that, their name, and inside that, their posts, and inside that, the title. And the data you get back has that exact same structure. What you ask for is what you get.
But GraphQL is about way more than just fetching data. It actually has 3 different kinds of operations, what I like to call its 3 superpowers, that cover pretty much everything you need to build a modern app.
So we've mostly been talking about queries, and that's just for reading data.
But there are also mutations, which is really just a fancy word for writing data. Creating a new user, updating a blog post, deleting a comment. And then there's the third one, which is where things get really exciting.
Subscriptions. This is GraphQL's elegant answer for real-time data. In the old days, if you wanted live updates, your app would have to constantly bug the server, asking, anything new? Anything new? How about now? With a subscription, the app just opens a live connection and listens. When new data is ready, like a new chat message or a stock price update, the server pushes it to your app instantly. It is so much more efficient.
So after all that, you might be thinking GraphQL is the answer to everything. Well, not always. It's an incredibly powerful tool for sure, but it's important to know when to use it. So let's actually compare it to some of the other popular ways of building APIs like REST and gRPC.
And looking at it this way, you can really see where GraphQL just shines. I mean, its flexibility is completely off the charts, letting apps ask for literally any combination of data they need. And that, of course, means overfetching just becomes a thing of the past. It's got that powerful single endpoint, and it's strongly typed, which means the app and the server always agree on what the data looks like, which prevents so many bugs. Now, a tool like gRPC might be faster for internal machine-to-machine communication, but for building apps that people actually use, GraphQL's flexibility is just unmatched.
So when should you really reach for GraphQL? Well, it's a home run if you have different kinds of clients, like a website and a mobile app, because they almost always need slightly different data. It's a lifesaver if your user interface changes a lot, because your front-end team can just change their queries without having to wait on the back-end team. And it's fantastic for tying together data from a bunch of different microservices into one clean API.
But let's be real, it's not a silver bullet. If all you're building is a simple service to create, read, update, and delete items, a classic REST API is probably simpler and faster to build. Caching is another big consideration. With REST, every different piece of data has its own unique URL, which standard web caches can handle easily. With GraphQL, since everything goes to one URL, that kind of simple caching gets a lot trickier. And of course, like any powerful new tool, there's going to be a learning curve for your team.
Okay, let's zoom out and bring this all home. What's the big takeaway here? Why does understanding GraphQL actually matter for anyone who's building or managing software today?
It really boils down to these 4 revolutionary ideas. First, GraphQL gives you unparalleled flexibility for your apps to get exactly the data they need. Second, it creates incredible efficiency by totally cutting out wasted data. Third, it massively simplifies your whole system with that single unified endpoint. And fourth, its strongly typed schema acts as a contract between the front end and back end, preventing bugs and just making development so much faster.
At the end of the day, GraphQL really represents a fundamental shift in thinking. We're moving away from a world where the server dictates what data you get, to a new world where the app is empowered to have a conversation. So the real question to leave you with is this. Is the way your applications get their data built for the flexible, fast-paced world we live in now? Or is it still stuck in yesterday?